Happy Wednesday, everybody, on the eve of Thanksgiving. Hope that you all are getting ready, whether you're traveling, in your car, in your plane, or wherever, that you're listening to us as we get together here. Matthew and myself will be here and talk a little football with you.
Mhm.
Matt, tomorrow, of course, is Thanksgiving, and it's been
Mhm.
a very, very interesting situation with regard to uh, from a Thanksgiving standpoint, how it got started. And it got started back in the 40s. There was a company, in those days there were a lot of local department stores. Well, this was a JL Hudson company, and the JL Hudson company was a major sponsor of the Lions. So the Hudson people said, "Look, we would love to have," and they'd had it for years, high school games on, on Thanksgiving morning, and then of course everybody would disperse and head back and have have their Thanksgiving dinner. So he
Mhm.
talked the Lions into playing a game on Thanksgiving. Well, it
Mhm.
turned out that that was really, that one time, what was supposed to be a one off turned out to be, you know, to this day keeps going. And from the standpoint of the Hudson people, they thought it was cool. It's the only time the Lions in that year sold out the stadium was on the Thanksgiving day. So let's fast forward into the 70s, and they decided, well, wait a minute, we've got one successful situation. What if we had two?
Mhm.
Approached the Dallas Cowboys, and at that time, Tax Schramm, who had formerly been with CBS, said, "Look, we'll take it. We'll be happy to do it." And so Dallas did it, and they took it away from Dallas and went to St. Louis for 2 years. That was another disaster. And so when the deal came up, Tex said, "Look, we will do this in perpetuity. All right, we're taking the game back, and we're going to do that." So you had a
Mhm.
12 o'clock game or 1 o'clock game, I guess would be the closest, and a 4 o'clock game. And then a few years ago, I say few, it's more like, almost like a decade ago, they decided to do Thursday night football. And that was purely to give the networks basically three openings for their games. And of course, we are now on a Black Friday game as well. That one's the streaming one for Amazon. So,
Yeah.
it all got started with a department store who wanted a football game. And that's where we are right now. So, all right, let's take a look at those games. Okay, let's see what we got. The Lions kick off their uh, kick off the day at taking on the. I had it here a second ago. My apologies. Um, mm, Bad day already. All right. Um, they will kick off the week with. Okay, here we go. All right, Thanksgiving Day is Green Bay at Detroit. That should be a good one. Followed by Kansas
Mhm.
City and Dallas.
Mhm.
The nightcap is Cincinnati and Baltimore.
Oh, what a what a rough game. Which at least in that Cincinnati and Baltimore, there in the 8 o'clock window, you're now getting Joe Burrow back
Mm-hmm.
for Cincinnati, so that'll add some extra lore to that. Otherwise, what would probably be non a non-starter for a lot of people on Thanksgiving Eve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this it seemed to be Baltimore and Cincinnati a few years ago was a pretty good series,
Mhm.
and I don't know. I mean, look, Cincinnati, Baltimore, it's a division game. That's a rough division to begin with. Um,
It is.
and Cincinnati, for reasons I cannot explain, have actually given Baltimore a ton of grief over the years.
Yeah.
More often than not, Baltimore wins, but it doesn't come easy. And if Joe Burrow can't come back, and we're hoping that he can, but if he can't, you got Joe Flacco coming against his old team. So
Yeah.
that would be kind of a fun, backstory in that one.
Well, yeah, and it's also one where if you're the Baltimore Ravens, you're trying to come back in that division. The Pittsburgh Steelers
Yeah,
have opened the door since you've gotten Lamar Jackson back,
right.
so they're very much in the thick of that divisional race. So they have a lot, I would say, a lot more to play for than Cincinnati does in terms of an overall divisional race.
100%. Yeah. And they've been living and dying on the run, and so that is not a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And
kind of their. That's kind of like Ravens football.
yeah, I would say for Baltimore too, they had a couple struggles against maybe some lesser opponents these last couple of weeks as well. And that's something where you're playing the worst defense in the NFL. So you would like to be able to kind of knock some of the rust off from Lamar's absence and really start to get that offense humming in the fashion that you would expect from Lamar Jackson, the Baltimore Ravens at this point.
Yeah, and Todd Monken's done a very good job of trying to not overtax him.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, it's been a solid game plan they came in, but it's just not been a very explosive game plan, all things considered.
right,
So
real
they
quick.
have an opportunity to right some of their faults they've had here recently and continue gaining ground on Pittsburgh, who lost again last week.
Yeah, and now they've got Aaron Rodgers with a broken hand.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, not that Mason Rudolph was a bad backup, so we'll have to see how that goes. But Pittsburgh's defense is not playing like Pittsburgh's defense, so
No, they're having some,
problem.
and that's where I wonder if maybe they're starting to feel some of the age of some of their additions on the defensive side.
Mm-hmm.
They added Darius Slay, they added Jalen Ramsey, two of one of the better corners to ever play the position, at least in this era of the NFL. They're both multi-time All-Pros. I think at one point in time they probably would have been considered the best at their position, but they're also in essence shells of their former selves. They aren't what they have been, and they're older. They're older in terms of the NFL, so their legs aren't as fresh, and they may be starting to feel that on the backside.
Could very well be. Since we're doing trivia here today, when Joe Flacco got drafted, many people forget that Joe actually started his career as a quarterback at Pitt. I cannot remember the head coach at Pitt at that point in time, but after spring practice, he actually moved Joe to defensive end because he thought that would be a better position for him. Flacco decided that was not going to be a better position for him. In those days, you didn't have the transfer portal. So what he did, but if you stepped down, meaning if you went down to the FDS category, you didn't have to wait a year. So he went down to Delaware, did fine, got drafted, and came to camp. And as impressive as one could be with regards to just coming off the college campus and going through mini camps and the the preseason. I mean, he looked good for a kid, right?
Yeah.
Well, a week before their first game, Kyle Bowler, who was supposed to start, had a freak accident and he smacked his hand on the back of his own helmet, which we'll have to worry about that later. And he couldn't play. Well, they said, okay, Troy Smith, who had just come off, a couple of outstanding years at Ohio State, was there. And so they thought, okay, cool. We got Troy. Troy gets on Thursday, Troy gets food poisoning and can't play. And so starting was Joe Flacco in the first game when he was actually a Baltimore Raven as a rookie, and he never turned around. They never, Kyle Bowler never got back. Troy Smith never got back. And, the legend of Joe Flacco was born.
Yeah, sometimes all it takes is those freak injuries. I mean, obviously everybody's well versed in how Tom Brady got his start
Right.
in
Yeah.
New England with Drew Bledsoe going down. So, those freak accidents, sometimes I feel like in history you obviously look back on and you notice the failures more than you do the successes typically.
Sure.
But they can work in your favor. It's not often, but they can work in your favor from time to time.
Absolutely. The 4:30 game, Kansas City Dallas. Kansas City's starting to play, like Kansas City. Dallas is an enigma. I have no idea what you're going to see when you go out and watch them play. They
Mm-hmm.
played better in the last few weeks, but they spotted Philly at 21 points and then came back and beat them. I don't think that's going to happen against Kansas City, but anything's possible.
Yeah, Kansas City, they've been consistently inconsistent this year thus far.
Right.
1 week they'll go out, they'll lay an egg on offense. The other week they'll go out and they'll beat one of the best teams in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
There's just been no discrimination in terms of how they play or who they play against. It's pretty much a spin of the roulette wheel every week. But this is a game with playoff implications for both teams. They're both kind of sitting on the cusp, sitting around that. If I remember correctly, I think what is Dallas? Is Dallas 5-5-1? I think is their
so.
record.
Yeah.
And Kansas City 6-5. So they're both on the outside looking in. And if they hope to make a late playoff push for both of them, then this is a game that they both have to have. Pretty consequential for both sides.
Oh, 100%. I would say right now, more consequential for Kansas City than it is for Dallas.
Yeah, it's a case if you're Kansas City where this is like everybody has compared you to the New England Patriots in that dynasty. And there was legitimate talk last year that if they win the three-peat, do you consider them better, yada, yada, yada. And obviously they didn't win, so that conversation quieted down. Kansas City completely takes themselves out of that discussion if they miss the playoffs this year. Patrick Mahomes takes himself out of the Brady discussion if they don't make the playoffs this year. Because, I mean, it's a scenario where, yes, not everything has gone your way, but there was still a reasonable path to the playoffs, and you just could not, you just didn't make it work. It's not like you're in an incredibly strong AFC this year. I mean, the New England Patriots and the Indianapolis Colts are two teams that are leading your division. It's not a knock on either of those teams, but it just feels a little early for them to be having the success that they're enjoying right now. And
Absolutely.
So I would say it would be a definite stain on the record of the Chiefs.
Well, we'll see how it all works out from that standpoint. And, it really is a key game for both teams. But speaking of a key game for both teams, Green Bay and Detroit, to me, seems like almost an elimination game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they're battling with the Bears for that division title as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that as well. And, I mean, it's a story of inconsistency again with those teams. Because with Green Bay, man, there's been times that Jordan Love has looked fantastic this year. And then there's been other times where you question, has Jordan Love ever played the quarterback position before?
Mm-hmm.
So it's been interesting because Green Bay's defense has been what Green Bay's defense is.
Mm-hmm.
That has not changed all year. I wouldn't expect that to change anytime soon. And for Detroit, again, it's just kind of been come and go. That defense on the backside is really, really bad. Even when they're healthy, they haven't been very good. But this is also a game that we've seen played before. It was the first game of the year this year, I believe it was. Was that Sunday?
Yeah.
Football? So we've seen this one play out. We saw how Jared Goff and the Lions attacked that Green Bay defense. There was a lot of quick, short passes.
Mm-hmm.
where you look up and you're like, man, Jared Goff's completed. What is that, 20 passes he's completed, and he's got like 150 yards. So you're probably going to have more of the same in terms of slowing that pass rush for Green Bay down if you're Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there's any doubt that I honestly think Detroit can get this game, and I feel more comfortable with Detroit than I do with Green Bay. Both of them have been, as you said earlier, consistently inconsistent, but at home on a Thanksgiving Day, I really think that things should fall into place for Detroit.
Yeah. I mean, it's a turning point at this season. You're either trending in the correct direction or you're not. You're building momentum towards the playoffs or you're not. So you're kind of in between there.
Yep.
So
it's not where you want to be.
No.
So we'll see. We'll see how that works out. There's been a development, for lack of a better way of putting it. I spoke to some guys the other day and then got some text yesterday. Turns out that the number one coaching candidate for the Penn State job is Brian Hartline. Now, if you don't know Brian, he is the Buckeyes wide receiver coach and the offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
And he is regarded in the Big Ten as, without question, the single best recruiter in the entire country.
Oh, yeah.
Now, that's always debatable. But but I got to say, you got to give Brian props for at least being in the top 5, right? I would think that would be fair, a fair proposition. When Harbaugh left Michigan made a hard run at Brian.
Mm-hmm.
And he just, he thought, you know what? I'll get other chances. I'm damn sure not going to go, to the enemy and come back and coach in the horseshoe.
Mm-hmm.
Penn State is not, it's not a rival to Ohio State. So I think that if the offer is right, I would think that Brian would be, a really good choice, frankly. He recruits your part of the country, meaning he recruits the part of the country in Western Pennsylvania, Jersey, Maryland, same place James Franklin went out after. But he also has national contacts.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about his recruiting, and his recruiting has been fantastic. I mean, you look at the guys that he's brought in, they've all been 4 and 5 stars. But what I find almost as impressive, if not more impressive, about Brian Hartline and his recruiting is the development of his recruits. Like these are all 4 and 5 star guys, and all of them are hits. Like the one guy that I think you could consider like his biggest bust is Brandon Ennis, who's still a really solid contributor on that Buckeyes roster right now, former 5-star. Like just look down the board: Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marvin Harrison. The list goes on and on. You can pick your favorite picture of all the Buckeyes gathered for their receiver meeting, on the sideline, and it's just got all those names lined up. But all those names, they were big names coming out of high school, but when they got to Ohio State, they continued to be big names, which is what was really impressive about him to me.
Yeah, and we've seen Emeka Egbuka this year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's been because of the rash of injuries, he stepped up and he's wide receiver 1 on the Buccaneers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he is. I mean, he has to be this year. You said it. You mentioned all those injuries for Tampa Bay, and that's another big selling point is he has a lot of NFL success to base it off of as well. because these guys,
Yeah.
I talked about the development and how they turned from 4 to 5 stars to stars in college. Well, those stars in college are continuing to be stars in the NFL too when they get to the next level. So that's another, like, it's just they've been good at all three levels, which is obviously some credit to the player, but it's also a big credit to what they do at Ohio State in terms of development.
Yeah. Well, he's got the situation where, by the way, just for those wanting to know, he's been named by 24/7 as the National Recruiter of the Year 4 times.
Yeah.
So, not for nothing. That's not a bad. It's not a bad thing to have.
No, it's not. No.
If you're trying to beat Ohio State and Michigan, to me, Brian would be a massive. He would be he's ready to be a head coach. I don't think there's any question about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, he definitely is. It's just a matter of, will he take that job? Does he see the value in that job?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't take Michigan because it's a rival.
Right.
I wouldn't call. Obviously, it's not in the same breath. Penn State is a competitor with Ohio State. So
Sure.
Is it rival or competitor that he's worried about? If it's just rival, then Penn State's a job that he's absolutely going to take a look at and might honestly take as well. But again, Penn State needs to move quickly. They're already starting to see some decommits in their current class. Messiah Mickens just flipped his commitment from Penn State to Virginia Tech this past week.
Well, I think that if you could punch him in there quick, right? If you say, okay, Brian Hartline is our guy, not only could he keep some of those James Franklin guys, but he could take some of the guys that were headed to the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's long since been mentioned the Penn State offense, in particular the receiver room, which, maybe when you look at it now with hindsight, maybe it's not maybe it's not the receiver room. Maybe it's been a little bit more of the offense that's been the issue for Penn State as a whole. But they've been looking for somebody that they feel like can recruit that position and can bring in difference makers at wide receivers, because they feel it's what they've been missing. They go back to some of the guys that they've had at wide receiver and the differences that they made. Really, when Penn State was going strong, the KJ Hamlers, the Chris Godwins, and such. And they were difference makers in that offense, and really what made Penn State feel like they were much more competitive in those football games. That's something they feel like they've been missing there for a while.
Yeah. And it seems like one of the guys is getting some getting his tires kicked, I guess would be the best way of putting it, is the James Madison coach, Bob Chesney. He's a native of Pennsylvania. And he coached, obviously, at Holy Cross and built a strong program. He's won everywhere he's been, but he's never been a top division, a Power 4 conference guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that if they went that direction, one, I would be disappointed if I was Penn State. And this is as simple as, you couldn't hire Kirk Cignetti, so you're trying to replicate Kirk Cignetti.
Right.
If you go that route. And if you're Penn State and the program that you think you are, then that's not what you want. You don't want to be the team that's trying to replicate Kirk Cignetti. You should be getting a guy who has already proven it before. And, I saw Nick Saban gave his endorsement for him here recently, but Brian Dable is a guy that's done it in college as well, that I feel like is a more proven option than going over to James Madison and trying to poach their head coach.
Yeah, I think is it a testament to what he's done? Yes. Is it taking a chance when you got a guy? You got 3 or 4 guys that you could pick to keep things going. I just Hartline to me is the obvious choice. Chesney, is the obvious choice to take Tulane's job when Summerall moves, up the ladder.
Yeah, that one feels like a move that I don't know. Penn State has been at a certain level for the last few years where they feel like they're so close, but they're just not good enough yet. And it feels like if you're making a move like that, you're signaling like that's signaling we're willing to give it some time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were willing to give it some time, why would you not just keep James Franklin in the first place?
Right. The Kalen DeVore situation. And I give credit to the athletic director and president who came out and said, "Look, Kalen DeVore's our guy. If he loses the Iron Bowl, we wouldn't be happy, but at the same time, we're not throwing him out." So, the conspiracy theorists who are out there saying that Kalen DeVore would be the next coach at Penn State because he's going to get fired at Alabama, they can put that to rest.
Yeah, it was a confusing one to me when I first heard it. But if I'm being honest, the way that Auburn Alabama rivalry is and the way that it gets people to act, nothing would surprise me if Alabama were to lose that game. So it's. I mean, I would not expect it. I know that you said he had Greg Burns' vote of support, which is big, but if they were to lose that football game, there is going to be a lot of unrest from that Alabama fan base with them missing the playoffs 2 years in a row, and more importantly, losing to their largest rival at the end of the year.
Yeah, but the problem is, you really can't spend a lot of time worrying about what the fan base wants.
No, you can't. And that's where I feel like I get frustrated with the James Franklin situation at Penn State. Is that's what it feels like. It felt like they were listening to the fan base when they made that move. It felt like such an emotional decision, and that's what you would be doing if you let go of Kalen DeBoer. You're listening to the fan base. You're letting the fan base noise get to you.
Right, and more importantly, I honestly think that's what happened at LSU.
Yeah, LSU. I think that's what happened there as well. But there is also, you've seen some of the dysfunction since they moved on from Brian Kelly. Mm-hmm. Now, what I will say is Brian Kelly's son wearing his running out on senior day. Mm-hmm. A guy who really didn't play, if I remember correctly, I think he's logged 0 career snaps at LSU. Mm-hmm. He didn't play at LSU. He came to LSU because his dad was at LSU. Right. And he runs out on senior day. He's like, man, free Brian Kelly, yada yada yada. No, absolutely, he was fired. You're surprised that they don't want him to come back on senior day for your come on, man. That was an interesting look from his son, one I was not too personally fond of.
Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing. Was he fired? Was he actually? I mean, they're in court now debating whether or not he was fired.
Yeah, which is insane if you're LSU, because now you're talking about a guy who, I guess the question would be: is he been getting a paycheck? I feel like that's pretty cut and dry as to whether or not you're fired.
You think?
I mean, he hasn't been at work in a month, or the better part of a month at least. Mm-hmm. So if he wasn't fired, then man, he's not been doing his job very well. But no, it's insane. They gave the university, is it the chancellor or the president? They said to go ahead and write out and sign an official notice of leave or something like that. Mm-hmm. So supposedly he wasn't actually. I don't know how that works.
It was originally put out as a leave of absence.
Wow.
Now Normally on a leave of absence, that's initiated by the person who wants to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's not initiated by somebody else. When that's called either firing you or benching you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know if this group of clown cars at LSU, um, I don't know how much more they could screw this thing up.
Well, how much more they could screw this? But then you turn around and all of a sudden they're a media consensus favorite. Uh, I saw on 3 somebody put together an article where they just kind of they went around and they asked a bunch of different personalities in college football. And when I say a bunch, I'm talking about they got guys from ESPN, they got guys from Fox, Barstool,
Sure.
CBS. Every major publication they have people. They just kind of took a poll like, where do you think Lane's going to go?
Mm-hmm.
And with the exception of, I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of like 5 or 6 of them, the consensus was LSU. So that will speak to the brand power of LSU if they're able to do what they've done with Brian Kelly and still wind up with Lane Kiffin.
I don't know. Man, that definitely keeps me. I don't know what to say about that. To be honest, it's basically. Look, God knows what's going to happen with Lane on Saturday. I really don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that because I'm not a big fan of LSU. I don't think at this point in time he actually knows. And I think that the puppet master over there, Jimmy Sexton, is just, this is you and I are baseball fans.
Mm-hmm.
How many times have we seen Scott Boras clients being they're coming, Aaron Judge is coming to the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he will whenever the Yankees come to play the Giants, but he's not coming to play for the Giants. This is where they want the buzz. They want because what happens? What happens is if LSU, doesn't get them, they got to go to Jimmy Sexton to get another coach.
Mm-hmm.
If Florida doesn't get them, who they got to go to? Jimmy Sexton to get another coach.
Yeah, that's where I asked the question because I saw who represents Jed Fish. Is it Jimmy Sexton as well?
I think so, but I'll check.
I know it's a lot of the top coaches. I'm just curious just how many of these is it like genuinely all of your top targets in coaching that are rep by Jimmy Sexton right now is what I would be curious about. Because I mean, obviously you've got a majority of them that you have to go through, but is there a guy who's not rep by Jimmy Sexton? Also, not to mention, don't forget that Jeff Landry is a guy who essentially, without directly naming him, came after Jimmy Sexton in his press conference post Brian Kelly firing, a press conference that was made. It's the governor's press. It was the governor speaking, yada yada, not intended at all to be football, and yet it's still wound up like that.
Jimmy Sexton represents 37 college coaches, 11 of the 14 in the SEC alone.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, so they are going to have to pivot. The odds are that it will be a Jimmy Sexton guy for all these schools that they have to pivot. But you're already seeing, and it's all of the fan bases, Ole Miss, LSU, and Florida are all discussing the second options because at this point nobody knows. Like people seem to believe it's LSU, but then it really seems to like change with the hour where Lane Kiffin may or may not end up, in the coming days. Mind you, we have to get through today. We have Thanksgiving tomorrow, and then they have to go play the Egg Bowl on Friday.
Right.
So while we're finally getting close to a resolution on all this, it still feels like it's light years away. And I would be curious. I would guess that Lane Kiffin is going to know tomorrow what his long-term plan is. Because you sit down at Thanksgiving, and I would assume Lane Kiffin's going to sit down at Thanksgiving with his family, and this will be the topic of discussion.
Yeah, it's oftentimes, and this has come up, and I've made, I've had conversations with people about this with baseball, and we're talking about Scott Boras, and they start blaming the players, and I'm like, stop it. It's like, if you're not, agents are out there to whip up fan bases, because the more they whip up fan bases, the more pressure it puts on, the alumni and all the, and the people who are picking coaches to either fire a coach or go out and get a guy they don't necessarily want.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day, and then I don't know if you've heard this one. Another one of Jimmy Sexton's former clients. Well, he's a client now, but former coach. I hear this, and this just blows me away. If Lane gets the job at LSU, he's going to hire Ed Orgeron to be his offensive coordinator.
No, there's no way. Coach O, the offensive coordinator.
That's what they said.
Coach O has proven to be a fantastic culture guy during his time in the coaching ranks. He was a solid O-line coach. That's what got him his interim job at Ole Miss. I think the actual job at Ole Miss there for a little while, and a similar way it worked out at LSU. He has no business calling offensive plays. Respectfully, he has no business calling offensive plays. You have. Now, granted, would that be a figurehead with Lane Kiffin being the head coach? Very possibly. But that's insane to me to think that Coach O would be listed as an offensive coordinator. But it is clear that the people of Louisiana want Coach O back.
Well, he's cheaper than Lane Kiffin from that standpoint.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I've always had a soft spot in my heart for Coach O. If you sit down with him for more than 5-6 minutes, you're laughing your head off because stories that he tells, and his players love him, and he's just a good dude. He's a nice dude.
What I would throw out there, if you're LSU, say you lose the Lane Kiffin sweepstakes, why would you not go hire back Coach O? Go hire Coach O. And let him be the CEO of that football team. Right. Blake Vicker's your defensive coordinator, and he is one of the best in the country at what he does. That's not going to change. He is a fantastic DC. He's an LSU guy.
Right.
That's not going to change. You go get an offensive coordinator that's really good, then it's a model that's proven to work as well. Go ask Joey McGuire at Texas Tech how it's working out for them.
Right.
They'll tell you things are going all right over there.
I often wonder why Coach O didn't get another job.
Well, it is interesting, the timing, because Coach O is now looking to get back into coaching. Do you know what expires this year?
No.
His LSU buyout.
Oh.
It is the last year that buyout will pay him.
Okay.
So I think people have used that as a bit of like now he's just looking to, now he's unemployed.
Right.
It's what it really boils down to. So I think he's been enjoying his years. And now, now that you're not making money, obviously you want to make money. So, you're looking to get back into it. Yeah.
Well, the other thing too is, he does have the national championship ring to walk around with. It does prove it. It's funny. Dan Mullen told me that when Florida played, LSU, when they met after the game to shake hands, Mullen says to Coach O, Which one of us is going to get fired first?
Mm-hmm. I wonder, was there a consensus that they came to?
You mean did Dan tell me that Coach O said it's me, not you?
Yeah,
Pretty
yeah,
much, yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean,
But
they
I
were
think it
both
was
on
Dan,
point.
right? Dan, I think Dan got fired before Coach
Did
O.
he? So Dan Mullen, after he lost the Georgia game, they booted him to the curb.
Right, I remember that.
It was if I remember correctly, the thing that got Dan Mullen fired was the sour taste that Florida fans had in their mouth watching him smile and chat with Kirby Smart
Right.
post beat down in Jacksonville. They
Mhm.
got him canned. I'm not exactly sure on the timeline of when Coach O was fired.
It's it doesn't really matter. But they both have a sense of humor. It's funny, you mentioned the Kirby Smart situation with Dan, and
Mm-hmm.
I remember there was Mike Bianchi, who has been covering college football from the Orlando Sentinel for you know God knows how many years. Um, they ask him about it, and he said Kirby's a friend. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
what you want me to just walk over and hit him in the head? What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
He said we had a chance to chat for a couple minutes. He says, he goes, I see him, off in the off season sometimes. He goes, coaches things,
Mm-hmm.
or our paths cross in airports. But, I had a couple of seconds. The game was over. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I'm not going to miss the bus. So,
Yeah. Well, that's what Florida fans got very upset when they learned that Billy Napier was at a Georgia practice
mhm,
shortly after his firing from Florida this year. It's like,
mhm,
well, Kirby and Billy are also friends.
right.
They're and they had Texas coming up, a team that Billy Napier had beaten
Mhm.
earlier that year. So yeah, he was at practice. That fully checks out with the way that Kirby Smart does things.
Yeah. And I mean, if you want to go back a little bit, Lou Holtz and Bobby Bowden were incredibly close friends. As a matter of fact, when Holtz got married and they were looking for a job, it was Bobby who left West Virginia who got him the job at West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And, they stayed good friends. Obviously, West Virginia, I'm sorry, FSU and Notre Dame played some pretty epic games against each other,
Mm-hmm.
but that didn't mean they weren't friends. I mean, you can't. I mean, if you walk around at SEC Media Day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Half these coaches are spending time just sitting down BSing with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
It's not like they hate each other.
like there's a world where Lane Kiffin takes that Florida job,
Mm-hmm.
and everything about Florida and Georgia returns to really that 20 the early 2010s where they're both consistently highly ranked, or really when
Mm-hmm.
Dan Mullen had them rolling
Mm-hmm.
as well, and it kind of returns to that heat of the rivalry and everything like
Mm-hmm.
that. And then you're gonna have to take a step back and look at it from 1,000 feet away and remember that, hey, Lane Kiffin and Kirby Smart are in a group chat. They coached together at Alabama for years. They're
Right.
actually really good friends. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's gonna there's if that were to happen, there would be assuredly some dynamics that would piss off Georgia fans and piss off Florida fans alike.
Well, then you're doing something right if both fan bases are upset over the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
it's like, oh, good, we're doing it right. We got these
Mm-hmm.
guys pissed off at. No, it's funny, and it's you can do the same thing at Big Ten. I mean, there's some guys who don't care for each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, these guys, you know, that they realize we're only one job away from not being here.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they they absolutely are. And I mean, listen, there's always a scenario where with these guys, they know how close it is to them being fired,
Mhm.
especially in this day and age. So you're not just tossing relationships out the window because
Mhm.
that guy coaches at Florida and that guy coaches at Georgia.
Right.
It's just not something you can do anymore. I think it's what people talk about different leagues. like the NBA. That's a big one that people throw around, especially the older players. They're like, man, everybody's friends now. It's like they kind of have to be. You can't just walk around the court hating the other team. Pure hatred both on and off the court. Maybe it gives you a better product on the floor from time to time, but this is a much different world than it was then. You got to see these guys a lot. You got to intertwine or intermingle with these guys a lot. So the day and age of just, I absolutely despise that guy that's on the other sideline of me is generally gone. You're always going to have those scenarios where there is a genuine disdain. I think that probably is happening in the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry right now.
Well, that's a Bo Schembechler, Woody Hayes thing.
Mm-hmm.
They genuinely didn't like each other,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what was there. But you're talking about the NBA, right? It's, look at Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. Busted on each other. They thought they were good friends.
Mm-hmm.
And you couldn't have had more a Boston LA rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
At that point in time when those two guys were playing, and they got along great.
Yeah.
And Patrick Ewing and Reggie Miller, when Reggie was at Indiana and Patrick was the center at the Knicks, they got along fine. So you got friends,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of these guys, both in college and pros and the NBA and NHL, they come from that tree, right? You got the Kirby's got his tree, Saban's got his tree, coaches that go on to other places, but you're going to forget what Kirby taught you at Georgia just because you got another gig, or you get or what Saban taught you at Alabama. These are mentors.
Yeah, I will throw something out. You mentioned Kirby's coaching tree and forgetting what you learned all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
Last week, Dan Lanning must have forgotten what he learned during his time at Georgia, because he has comments that directly contradict his comments this past weekend following Oregon's win against USC from his time at Georgia when he talked about the schedule. He said, we're not playing, Charleston. It was Chattanooga State, I think was the name he threw out there. It's such a disingenuous and short-sighted comment from Dan Lanning right there. One that I don't think he really believes, and one that was seemingly a statement to the committee in a way, because that's what it is now. Like when some of these coaches on the backside of things, they're politicking now. When you get to the podium, you're politicking. I mean, Kirby Smart politicked during his time. And I remember him politicking back in 2018 after they lost that SEC championship to Alabama. He was politicking for his way in. It's something that all coaches do. But man, that's Oregon's first ranked win on the season. What are we doing, Dan? Don't throw stones at other people's schedules. I get it. You don't love it, and you're talking about people taking breaks and stuff like that. You said, well, they got a bye week. Well, guess who else had an actual bye week in your conference? Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
So that drove me up a wall that he wouldn't have made that comment, because it was extremely disingenuous, and he knew it was as well.
Well, that's the part where you get mad. That when somebody says something and they know they know better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so confusing.
There have been times where you cover people and you go over to them and you're lucky enough to know them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you go over and say, what the hell were you talking about? It's like, do you want to get somebody pissed off at you? Is this really where you want to go with this?
Yeah.
It's not a healthy way to go.
And it goes back to, it goes back to the people of this argument, this continuous argument of I guess SEC favoritism and bias. It's everybody who isn't a fan of a team in the SEC they put their hands over their ears and they go la 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 la, and they don't listen to anything until somebody goes like is standing in front of them screaming, being like, "You're right. This is why you're right." And until they see that, everything else they just toss out the window, and it doesn't matter. So it's
Well, it's tougher.
such a mind-numbing argument.
It's tougher nowadays to coach than it was in the old days.
Yeah.
And that's that's not taking anything away from anybody. It's just cycles go, things are different. And I can remember back at an SEC media day where we were filming, and this was basketball, and Dale Brown was coach talking about LSU, and he was given the nickname the preacher. And so I saw him in the lobby, and I said, "How you doing?" He's fine. We exchanged pleasantries. And I said, "So, preacher, you gonna have a good team this year?" He said, "I don't know. I got a problem at center." I go, "No, you don't. You got Shaq." Shaq is not a problem. And I said, "No, I don't." He goes, "I'm," and he goes, and he straight up said to me, "I told him to turn pro." I said, "What?" You tell? He goes, "Look, Jim." He goes, "The way they're just hacking him, they're hitting him. He's going to get hurt. I don't want to see his career go because nobody in this league, meaning the SEC at that time, can play against him." So you get these coaches who actually care about the players, God forbid, and they tell them what to do. I mean, that was a problem that the coach at Kentucky,
Calipari.
Yeah, John Calipari. John was the great one and done guy, right? And so people will go, "Well, wait a minute, what are you doing?" He goes, "Well, if this guy gets a chance to go out, play 1 year, leave, and get paid multiple millions of dollars in life-changing money, why am I going to try to keep him?"
Yeah. I mean, you want to talk about Kentucky's sustained run of success? That's 100% the reason. You said he's the king of one and done. He better be the king of one and done. He's got a 30 for 30 named one and done. That's his story from his time at Kentucky. So I hope he's the king of one and done. But no, when you're looking out for player safety and stuff like that, I mean, that's the right stance to take. It drives fans crazy, and I understand that. But in terms of Calipari's philosophy, it was a correct philosophy, and it allowed them to bring more 5-star freshmen in. And I get it, you're rolling a wheel at that point in time, but it's one where you're rolling a higher odds wheel than a lot of other people are because you're getting the best players in the country. Because the other best players in the country that committed to you, they saw success, and then they went and made their money. You have that as a selling point greater than any other school other than about Duke or North Carolina could have pitched you at that point in time.
And the other thing Calipari would do, if the guy had a not so great freshman year, right? No problem. We'll just keep going till you get, if it's year 2, you leave. If it's year 3, you leave. Or if you graduate from school, fine.
Yeah. I mean,
but he didn't. And I think the thing that pissed everybody off about John was that he didn't hide it.
Yeah. No. I mean, John was never exactly shy about the way he was with the media.
Him and Rick.
Coaching style. So he was very much coaches that are characters tend to rub people the wrong way. What people you never really can figure it out, but they always find a way to rub people the wrong way. I mean, heck, I'll be honest, I liked Lane Kiffin coming into the season. I still don't have an outright problem with Lane Kiffin. It does frustrate me a little bit when you've got people telling me that Lane Kiffin's the victim in all of this.
That's a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah, because it is some of the circus that he has created. Speaking of, I was going to touch on this because this one impacts you. The reports are that Alex Golesh has taken the Arkansas job today. I've seen that reported at multiple different outlets.
Well, look, I like Alex. He's a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
I never, ever. I mean, well, does it bother me? Yeah, it bothers me. But I never, ever begrudge someone who does something to better their career and better the life of their family.
Yeah, yeah, and that I think that's what people lose sight of in this transfer portal era.
Mm.
Is this is something that coaches have been doing for a while, and while I agree that regulation is needed in terms of NIL, 100%, you absolutely cannot fault these kids for going and getting what these schools deem them worth. If one school thinks you're worth more, and you choose to go to that school, that's fine. You know that you're getting what they believe you're worth, and the other school didn't value that much. It's fine. Go get your payday. It's not a problem.
No, not at all. And you gotta give people. I mean, there's people forget that there's these assistant coaches and strength coaches and and nutritionists and all these other people that are part of this. It's not just one person makes this happen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
And if you look at Dabo Sweeney, right? Dabo's lost 3 offensive coordinators and probably the best defensive coordinator he ever had.
Oh yeah.
And so people are going, well, wait a minute. How come Clemson's falling down? Well, Clemson's falling down because, as you said about Coach O a few minutes ago, Dabo's the SEO, the CEO. I'm sorry, the CEO of their team, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the deal at the moment. It's so if you're the CEO of the team, you can't do everything.
No. No.
And so,
You
you've lost your top recruiters. You lost a bunch of, of memory mass of how you've been doing things for years.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, you're hoping that things fall your way. Well,
Yeah.
good luck and Godspeed on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Dabo at Clemson's a whole feels like a whole different set of issues in terms of what they have going on. I mean, they've hired top end coordinator after top end coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
They tried the in-house thing. The in-house thing didn't work. And I think, it maybe begrudgingly, Dabo chose to hire from outside of Clemson after Venables left. And their OC, God, I don't even remember who their OC was. He was a guy they hired from inside. But they got Garrett Riley, and now they got Tom Allen. And these guys from the outside aren't working either. Tom Allen was fantastic at Penn State last year. Garrett Riley was arguably the reason why TCU was in the national title game a few short years ago. But they've gotten to Clemson, and things just haven't worked out the same way for
them. Just out of curiosity, going back to Alex for just a minute,
mm-hmm.
I wonder why wouldn't he have been offered or brought into the mix on the Auburn job?
I almost wonder if that's not. I think Auburn very, very clearly has their head coaching candidates. I think they know who their 2 to 3 guys are. I think DJ Durkin's getting a little more serious look, but I think everything has pointed to John Summerall being their head coach ever since that job has came open. And honestly, I think that's a large part of it. It's a relative to Auburn's standards of a coaching search, which is just an absolute shit show. Excuse my language, but I mean that's just the way it's been at Auburn. This has been pretty quiet and pretty smooth. And if Summerall's their guy and they keep it quiet, that means good things for Auburn.
Yeah, I'm just curious as to, like, Summerall and Golish are both good coaches, and I'm not so sure. Look, not that Alex can go where Alex wants to go. Free will, I'm all for it. Even though I don't like him leaving. But if I was going to leave, I don't know that I'd leave for the Arkansas job.
It is an interesting case. You would have to wonder what Arkansas's plan on their NIL spending is, because it's a
There's
case
money there, but
I was going to say it's a case that's been laid out as one that makes a lot of sense. If you're at South Florida and you're going strong the way that program has been going,
mm-hmm.
what benefit do you have of jumping to the SEC? Obviously, you get a pay increase, right? But if you're jumping to the SEC in a situation where you can't really compete with the SEC, which is very possible if Arkansas does not change their spending in terms of their NIL and their investment overall to their football team, there's a very real possibility it's not a place you can fully compete at. Why would you jump from a place where you have buy-in from top to bottom, you have an understanding, you have a culture built at a place like he had at USF, to
Mm-hmm.
a place that is a fresh start, and you don't really have the same opportunity to compete in the league the same way you would at USF?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the theory that I had on Alex, right, and we're going a little longer than normal, so I'll try to keep it short, was that Alex would have another season at USF, and then there'd be some other openings that would fit his skill set. Plus, he would have 4 strong years on his resume.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I think coaches, and this is like I said, if Alex took the job, God love him, I'll text him and wish him the best. But sometimes it's the job you don't take that's the smartest move you make.
Yeah, I mean, well, listen, Kirby Smart was very close to taking that Auburn job a couple years before he ended up leaving for Georgia. And in that span where he was leaving for Georgia, he was also having meetings with South Carolina and wasn't too far off on taking that South Carolina job. Those are jobs that he turned down. I can tell you that Dan Lanning, during his time at Georgia, he turned down a few head coaching opportunities, and he sat around and he waited. And when he waited, that Oregon job came open, and when it did, he jumped on that, and that's worked out well for him. So there are these stories of these coordinators. You don't always just jump at the first fish that's biting. Sometimes you just got to be a little patient and hope something bigger latches on.
Because I'm not throwing shade on Arkansas, but they're not going to. He's not going to compete. He's not going to compete in Arkansas in the SEC the way he could with perhaps another job that opens up, next season.
Yeah, it has to be. There has to be, because it's fairly recent reporting, so I don't think any of the details have come out. But in that deal, there's going to have to be some NIL, like an increase in NIL spending. It just has to be, because Alex is a smart guy. He built that thing at South Florida, so he knows, he understands the sport and the business of it. So he knows that he's going to have X amount of dollars to build a competent roster at Arkansas. And when I say a competent roster, I mean a competent roster not to that of the standards of USF. USF's roster to compete in the American costs a hell of a lot less than Arkansas's roster to compete in the SEC would.
Yep, no question about that. Oh man, but what was I going to say? That probably wasn't that important. I think that Mike Kelly, who was the guy who hired him, and now Rob's got the job at USF. I think that both of them, had said, "Look, we know Alex is going to go somewhere. Okay, we're not harboring any ill feelings whether he does or doesn't. Right? We just hope he does it for the right place."
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it's the right place, to be honest with you. I thought it was telling.
Well, look at how Scott Frost did.
Yeah, I think it's really telling that Eric Morris took that Oklahoma State job. is what I think it is, because Eric Morris, from what I've read and seen, it appears that Eric Morris was offered the Arkansas job, and he chose to go to Oklahoma State, a place that Mike Gundy had griped and complained about their lack of NIL spending up until his final days there. So I would say that's very – I don't know if that's telling. I would assume that's telling in terms of what Oklahoma State is willing to do in terms of their NIL going forward versus what Arkansas is willing to do in their NIL going forward. It would appear if he was the option and was offered that job at Arkansas, obviously offered it at Oklahoma State, that Oklahoma State has their ducks in a row a little better than Arkansas does in terms of their NIL and the conference that they're in and the ability to compete.
Yeah. And I think, the success that Alex had at Tennessee as an OC was good, but that Arkansas job just doesn't. I mean, maybe I'm stupid, but it just doesn't click for me.
Yeah, the credit that I will give Arkansas this year is that, I mean, they're a defense away from being like a national title contender. I know we talked about it with LSU a couple years ago, how they've just had one aspect wrong. I mean, that offense for Arkansas has been fantastic, and they've been in almost every single SEC game they've been in. I think the two that they really haven't been in, all things considered, are Texas and Texas A&M. But other than that, everything's been one-score losses for Arkansas in conference. So you look at it, you go, man, they are so close, which is true. But that roster is not going to be retained year over year, and you're going to have to rebuild what was built this year, but now you're going to have to do it on both sides of the football. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to be handicapped to essentially investing in one side and hoping to win with one side of the football, then good luck at Arkansas and the SEC.
Just to finish the thought here, what if I'm USF, maybe I'm going after Chesney at James Madison?
Yeah, USF is now a much more attractive job. Like that's some of the benefit. I know people talk about head coaches leaving these programs, and sometimes it can like screw over the program when they leave. Mm-hmm. Sometimes when they leave, they're leaving the program in a better spot than when they found it, and it leaves them better suited to make their next hire. If Lane leaves Ole Miss, that'll be the case there. With Alex leaving USF, that is the case there. There's an obvious path to compete at USF. They've proved they can do it. They prove.
Well, don't forget Tulane too.
Yeah, Tulane as well. Yeah, if assuming Summerall leaves, right. That's one as well. Like, these are jobs now that are much more appealing to some of these coaching candidates when this cycle comes around. Some of these coordinators that are maybe looking to get their fresh start, and they don't have the the same P4 attention that some of these other guys are getting.
Yeah, it's basically a what can you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, dude, I'm gonna let you go because tomorrow is Thanksgiving, and I don't want to tax your throat too much, and we'll get back together soon. And hope everybody has a wonderful and safe holiday. And the dogs and the Ramblin' Rex from Georgia Tech will be on Friday, and we'll check in maybe and see what you're doing and see how life is going at the game.
That works.
All right.
That works.
Okay. The correspondent on the spot for that one. All right, man. Have a great weekend, guys. Outstanding, and thanks for joining us. And we'll be back. I'll be back on Friday, and then we'll be back again on Monday. So take care. Bye-bye.